Hello everyone, this is update for May 21, 2024, day 818 of the war, end of the date update. Also catch up for May 20 and 19. I actually would like to ask the viewers if, especially those who are sort of veteran viewers, if you would be interested in me resuming sort of macroeconomic analysis. So what's going on around the world, if you find that helpful, or you just want me to focus purely on the military development and sort of more like political, geopolitical development related directly to the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. I would say Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So, anyways, if you are interested in me doing a little bit more of that economic analysis, just shoot me emails. So, I understand the opinions, desires, and so on. I'll be honest with you, don't have much time to read the comments. Your feedback, direct feedback is welcomed. If you're not interested, also please feel free to say so. So I understand the sort of the will of the people, as they say. So first, I'm going to start with generic strategic updates, and then I'm going to switch to the situation on the battlefield in Ukraine. First, I'm going to start with Russia. So the member of Russia's lower chamber of Russia's parliament and the member of the defense committee, or I would call it war committee, of the Russian parliament, he openly stated that there is possibility of Russia's declaring war on Ukraine and total mobilization in Russia. This speeches, they don't happen by accident. They not just this is quite deliberate. Let's say warning, I guess, to Ukraine that's a possibility. There's another warning: is Russia's and Belarus exercises to basically use tactical nuclear weapons. They happen in two places. One is in Belarus, which is more focused towards Poland and Baltic states, and then the other one is actually in southern Russia, not terribly far away from the actual battlefield in Rostov on Don region. So they are happening in at least two regions, probably more than that. So that's again a clear warning sign that Russian political top, Russian president are sending to Ukraine and to the West, obviously. There's another thing that's happening is, if you remember, I shown this Polish judge who, say, fled or moved to Belarus some time ago. I think it was on May 6th, maybe it was on May 5th. I don't remember at this point. But this person is being actively circulated in Russia's media, in Belarus media. So basically, they keep him recognizable, so he is sort of does not disappear from the memory, and that people, essentially population, recognizes his face. The reason it's needed, if he's needed as a puppet for the future Polish government, he needs to be recognizable by the population. So that's why he is being sort of propped up and shown in the media, prepping him for sort of future role if that happens. It doesn't mean it's inevitable, but this scenario is apparently seriously considered by obviously Russia, and Belarus is, as I mentioned many times before, is extension of Russia. A little bit more of news, actually this time economic news from Russia. So Russia's import of goods is dropping like a rock. So it dropped 20% in March relative to March of 2023. As you can imagine, it's a very significant drop. The cumulative drop for the first quarter of 2024 is almost 10% relative to first quarter of 2023. And as you can see, since March is down 20%, so this nosedive is accelerating. Most likely, it's related to the situation where Russian consumer is effectively being cut off from the Western goods, and that's really probably what's driving it. There's also attempts inside of Russia to limit Chinese consumer goods into Russia, specifically cars. They're not great quality, they're not popular in Russia, but if you don't have Western cars, people out of desperation buy Chinese, and then they get pretty upset about the quality, and I don't think they give them a second chance. But nevertheless, Russia's government is clearly focusing on limiting imports, specifically the import of consumer goods to Russia, and we can see results. It also helps with shoring up FX reserves, so basically reserves of US dollars and euros in Russia, so more can be spent on the war effort. So this is a famous dilemma of butter versus guns, and it's becoming clear that Russian economy is shifting more towards guns from the butter. There's still some butter, but the balance is moving clearly in the military on the military side of equation. Now, a little bit about Ukraine. The sort of biggest news out of Ukraine is that now Ukrainian president is, I would say, not legitimate president because his term has expired. He decided not to do any election in Ukraine, which, in my view, completely misguided. And as things deteriorate, it will become very clear that it was a very big strategic mistake. Probably personally why he decided not to do it, because he's not terribly popular, and he's probably afraid that he's going to lose power, and that's really the driver on the personal level. At the same time, that deprived Ukraine from actually better options, better opportunities, even though it's not even clear who is better. But nevertheless, attempting to sort of to improve situation by trying some new option is still better than being stuck with someone who does not work for Ukraine as a whole. And this is actually even reflected in this some news reports stating that Ukrainian president is screaming at generals and things like that. This is actually deflection of actual real problem. And the real problem is that Ukrainian president is creating those problems because he's completely incompetent, and then he would fire people who tell him the truth. So as a result, he has this echo chamber where people basically lie, because those who would dare to tell him truth were fired by this president. So as a result, he has this choir of liars, and then he's upset that these people lie to him, which is normal reaction of those generals, I guess. So that's a real true situation, because it's somehow and the reason I said it's deflected, because it's presented as some kind of bad generals lying to him and so on. The reality is completely opposite. He created this situation. It didn't happen out of blue, and it's result of his inability to really manage the situation properly, and complete incompetence. And it's going to be more and more clear as time passes by that uh, that him and his team, they leading Ukraine towards disaster. And by that, I'm not saying that Ukraine should sort of surrender to Russia or so on. It's actually I mentioned this many times before, that rule of Ukraine president, current Ukraine president, deprives Ukraine of its ability to actually defend itself successfully and survive as independent state, and that's a problem in a nutshell in Ukraine. Now I'm gonna switch to the situation on the battlefield, and we're gonna look at the situation near Kharkiv. So I think it's becoming more and more clear that Russian forces had very limited resources when they initiated attack towards Kharkiv. Uh, they are clearly lost sort of their penetrating power at this point, and they could continue their drive if there are more resources, if there is more units, more soldiers, more equipment, and so on. Ukrainian command reacted in very, I would say, unprofessional way, and the reason I'm saying that is because they pulled battalion here, the regiment there. So it's a patchy. So you can see that they even brought, I think, battalion or something from this Dnipro group, which is naval infantry brigades. I think it's 36 or 37s. So battalion from that one of those brigades is fighting now near Kharkiv. Again, the fact that it's so patchy there is it's the first sign of the incompetence of the top military command. But for now, that worked because simply balance of power became more or less equal. So the Russian sort of tide has been stopped for now. This what's going to happen really at this point depends on Russia and Russian military command. If they're willing and if they have more resources to throw into this fight, then the tide will again turn against Ukraine. If they don't, then it might be more or less the same or slowly losing ground by Ukrainian troops. We'll see what happens there, but there won't be sort of this huge disaster that some of the Russia's propaganda outlets were sort of predicting and so on. And for the same reason, this attack against Sumy, which is north of Kharkiv, this is Sumy, it's still not materializing. So we'll see what happens there. But in my opinion, the Russian military does not have enough resources for a true meaningful attack. This was more of as I stated, it's really hard to explain what this is because there is no military logic in this. The only way I can explain it, as I said before, is as political reason why this attack was done. And even Russian president admitted that there is no goal to capture Kharkiv, and the reasons he stated that is because he realizes that Russian military needs like much more troops, as I said before, probably 200,000, 150,000, something like that, to be successful at capturing Kharkiv. And I don't believe that they have that at their disposal right now. And that might be the reason why there are conversations about the total mobilization in Russia, because Russian political top realizing that all of these efforts so far in Ukraine, they basically stalled, and there is no desire from West and from Ukraine to have a peace negotiations. And by that, what this really means is accepting Russian terms of the peace, which means whatever Russia captured, Russia keeps. That's really the terms that Russia is pushing, and it's obviously unacceptable for Ukraine. And Russia is also having difficult situation in general economy wise. It's not perfect. They can still continue. There's no question about it. But they also realizing that in the long run, the situation probably will get pretty bad in Russia as well, and they want to avoid it because, as I mentioned before, Russia's president is trying to maintain this social happiness, social peace inside of Russia and isolate ordinary Russian citizens from the negative consequences of the war. So far, he was partially successful in that, and it's important for him apparently to continue doing so. So we'll see where it leads, because again, if there is total mobilization, that's obviously not going to be, you know, insulating Russia's population from the negative consequences of the war. So let me look a little bit at the map. Essentially, map has not changed much. The most important is that Russian troops so far stalled at Lipsy. They cannot capture that, and that's really important point, important stronghold. And it's important that it's being held by Ukrainian military. So far, it does hold. Things are not as good in the Vovchansk area, and let me actually look, and I'm still showing old map, but the situation more or less, well, I guess it deteriorated in Vovchansk. So what happened is that the Russian troops are controlling northern part of Vovchansk and really the core and center of the city. So effectively, you can say that they controlled. Well, it's not really city; it's town. So effectively, they control town. They control the center or the core, which is where I'm showing it. The south of the town is really just suburban, houses. There's actually some industrial plant here, oil extraction plant here, but essentially, this one, the south is sort of outgrowth of the original town, of the original core, and so at this point, Russia's troops are effectively control northern bank of this Vovcha River, and also controlling the actually western bank of Siversky Donetsk River here, where I'm showing. So they are effectively poised to continue their attack and cross. Basically, next step is crossing these rivers, especially in the case of Vovcha, which is pretty small river. I almost want to call it a stream. It should not create huge problems. So we'll see. There will be next attempts. There will be attempts to cross the river and continue advances. And so far, as I stated, Ukrainian troops having a difficult time stopping Russia's advance in the Vovchansk area. But it definitely slowed down significantly. That's also true. Now let's move to the situation on the North Lugansk section of the front line. So things here also somewhat similar. Russia's pressure from southeast towards Kupiansk. The same is from northeast, the same pressure towards Kupiansk. So far, no major Russian gains there, which at this point it's actually already success. For Ukrainian side, there are no advances there. Similar, there's pressure here in this forest without much success by Russian side. Now let's look at the North Donbass section of the front line. Russian command resumed their pressure. It's a frontal primitive pressure towards with the goal being this town Siversk here. Not really a success so far in any of these locations, but Russian troops continuing their pressure. Now let's look at the situation west of Bakhmut and Russia's attack against Chasiv Yar, and obviously the goal is to capture. So I guess I would describe that Russian command is realizing that building the northern pincer will take quite a bit of time, probably a couple more months. And so they decided to do kind of like a shortcut and just attacking frontally Chasiv Yar, and more specifically um, outskirts of Chasiv Yar on the eastern side of this freshwater channel, which I would say it's not even really a town, because core of the town is on the western side, and it's not even close to the channel. So it's really they still kind of like attacking kind of like a forward field in terms of this town, but so they just pushing desperately forward, trying to achieve results, and so far I would say the results extremely limited, and giving the losses, it's almost self-limiting situation that I would say Russian troops cannot continue those attacks in the long run. So basically, it's a strategic dead end, and in some ways, the whole attack against Chasiv Yar right now is a strategic dead end for Russian troops and for Russian command. Not saying that things are perfect for Ukrainian side. It's far from that, but it's just not enough troops, not enough resources on the Russian side to quickly overcome Ukrainian defenses. Probably in a month or two, that might be possible, but as there is simply due to attrition of Ukrainian troops, that's the only way this can be result in in capturing Chasiv Yar, but by Russian troops. But that also will mean significant losses on the Russian side. So again, the situation there so far is far from perfect for Russian side, and somewhat on the better side for Ukrainian side. Where things are not perfect for Ukrainian side is in Klishivka. So Russian troops made some advance in Klishivka. It's not fully in Russian hands, but it's definitely moving in that direction, slowly but surely, which obviously going to be net negative. But the the whole point is to clear this kind of bridgehead of Ukrainian troops on the eastern side of the channel. And as you can see, that's even with the loss of Klishivka, it will still take quite a bit of time. So basically, the summary is that Russian troops are still far away from capturing Chasiv Yar. Uh, Giving this just generally direction of the war, this war of attrition, eventually that will happen. It's not going to happen soon. Let's put it this way. Now let's move to the central Donbass front line, and I'm just gonna look right away to this this map that I showed before. So Russian troops are resuming pressure in all directions. Don't have all of the arrows, but basically the more important, they are advancing along this railroad line where I'm showing direction towards Progress. This village here, they're not anywhere close to Progress, but I'm just saying they're advancing. There's strong pressure in that direction. Then there's even pressure right now towards Novoselivka Persha. Basically pressure towards north, towards Kalinova. So everywhere Russia's pressure. How long Ukrainian troops will be able to withstand that remains to be seen. I would say I'm personally very skeptical that will be long. I would say this is the most actually threatened section of the front line for Ukraine out of the whole entire, whatever it is at this point, 1,200 kilometers front line. This is the most dangerous area overall for Ukraine. Not actually Kharkiv, even though Kharkiv is sort of on the news and so on. This is just a big picture of the same situation. So this is show this area around the Cheretina, where Russian troops continuing strong pressure, and uh, there is not small probability that Ukrainian defenses will crack at some point and pretty soon, and Russian troops will flood forward. So a little bit south to it, Russian troops, as I mentioned, captured this village Netailova. So they will be continuing their advance along this road towards Selidova, as you can imagine. So far, Russian troops bogged down in this Krasnohorivka and west of Marinka area. Similar situation is west of Novomikhailivka. This area is sort of kind of like southern section of this front line is a little bit more stable, a little bit better situation. I'm not saying that it's permanent, but so far it's a little bit better shape. Now let's look at Zaporizhya front line. So things are fairly quiet. Russian pressure clearly subsided, even though it was small in the first place, just in Robotyne area and Urozhaine, and that's pretty much it. Again, it's fairly quiet there. Now let's look at the situation along the Dnipro River. Actually, to my surprise, Russian troops launched quite strong attacks against Krynky bridgehead in this village Krynky. It's actually unclear if they stated that they captured the completely eliminated bridgehead. Don't believe so. There is no really confirmation of that. So we'll see what's going on there. If they actually indeed captured this bridgehead, but I would say probably not. But beyond that, well, I would say that's important point. If this bridgehead lost, it's definitely not helpful for Ukrainian forces. In some way, this bridgehead was also kind of like insurance policy for Ukrainian forces that prevented Russian forces from actually crossing Dnipro River in this area and establishing their own bridgehead and trying to advance west of Dnipro. Because as long as there is this bridgehead, it's Russian troops really have to eliminate it first before they can move west. And if it's being indeed eliminated, that's really doesn't bode well for the future, meaning that there is increasing chance that Russian forces will attempt crossing Dnipro River and sort of continuing their attacks. Again, this goes back to resources, just a general strategic situation on the Russian side if they have resources, because if they if there with the current amount of resources, I would say there's not enough resources to do that. But if there is this total mobilization, then obviously there will be resources. So remains to be seen. In any case, the situation is really driven by Russian side. They have initiative and a choice where to attack, and Ukrainian side is firmly on defensive. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, and until next time, bye bye.